The 12 Chairs by Ilf and Petrov. Chapter 33, Expulsion from Paradise. While some of the characters in our book were convinced that time would wait and others that it would not, time passed in its usual way. The dusty Moscow May was followed by a dusty June. In the regional center of N, the Ghost No. 1 motor car had been standing at the corner of Staropen Square and Comrade Gubernsky Street for 2 days, now and then enveloping the vicinity in desperate quantities of smoke. One by one, the shamefaced members of the Sword and Plowshare conspiracy left the Stargorod prison, having signed a statement that they would not leave the town. Widow Gritsatsuyev, the passionate woman and poet's dream, returned to her grocery business and was fined only 15 rubles for not placing the price list of soap, pepper, bluing, and other items in a conspicuous place. Forgetfulness forgivable in a big-hearted woman.
"Got it," said Ostap in a strangled voice. "Hold this."
Ippolit Matveyevich took a flat wooden box into his quivering hands. Ostap continued to grope inside the chair in the darkness. A beacon flashed on the bank, a golden pencil spread across the river and swam after the ship.
"Damn it," swore Ostap. "Nothing else."
"There must be," stammered Ippolit Matveyevich.
"Then you have a look as well."
Scarcely breathing, Vorobianinov knelt down and thrust his arm as far as he could inside the chair. He could feel the ends of the springs between his fingers, but nothing else that was hard. There was a dry, stale smell of disturbed dust from the chair.
"Nothing?"
No. Ostap picked up the chair and hurled it far over the side. There was a heavy splash. Shivering in the damp night air, the concessionaires went back to their cabin filled with doubts.
"Well, at any rate, we found something,"
said Bender. Ippolit Matveyevich took the box from his pocket and looked at it in a daze.
Come on, what are you goggling at?"
The box was opened. On the bottom lay a copper plate green with age, which said, "With this chair, Craftsman Hams begins a new batch of furniture, St. Petersburg, 1865. Ostap read the inscription aloud. "But where are the jewels?" asked Ippolit Matveyevich.
"You're remarkably shrewd, my dear chair hunter. As you see, there aren't any."
Vorobianinov was pitiful to look at. His slightly sprouting mustache twitched, and the lenses of his pince-nez were misty. He looked as though he was about to beat his face with his ears in desperation. The cold, sober voice of the smooth operator had its usual magic effect. Vorobianinov stretched his hands along the seams of his worn trousers and kept quiet.
"Shut up, sadness, shut up, pussy. Someday we'll have the laugh on the stupid 8th chair in which we found the silly box. Cheer up. There are 3 more chairs aboard, 99 chances out of 100.
During the night, a volcanic pimple erupted on the aggrieved Ippolit Matveyevich's cheek. All his sufferings, all his setbacks, and the whole ordeal of the jewel hunt seemed to be summed up in the pimple, which was tinged with mother-of-pearl, sunset cherry, and blue.
"Did you do that on purpose?"
asked Ostap. Ippolit Matveyevich sighed convulsively and went to fetch the paints, his tall figure slightly bent like a fishing rod. The transparent was begun. The concessionaires worked on the upper deck, and the 3rd day of the voyage commenced. It commenced with a brief clash between the brass band and the sound effects over a place to rehearse. After breakfast, the toughs with the brass tubes and the slender knights with the Esmarsh doshes both made their way to the stern at the same time. Galkin managed to get to the bench first. A clarinet from the brass band came second. "The seat's taken," said Galkin sullenly. "Who by?" asked the clarinet ominously. "Me, Galkin. Who else? Polkin, Malkin, Shulkin, and Zolkind. Haven't you got a Yulkin as well? This is our seat." Reinforcements were brought up on both sides. The most powerful machine in the band was the helicon, encircled 3 times by a brass serpent. The French horn swayed to and fro, looking like a human ear, and the trombones were in a state of readiness for action. The sun was reflected 1,000 times in their armor. Beside them, the sound effects looked dark and small. Here and there a bottle glinted, the enema doshes glimmered faintly, and the saxophone, that outrageous takeoff of a musical instrument, was pitiful to see. "The Enema Battalion," said the bullying clarinet, "lays claim to this seat." "You," said Zolkind, trying to find the most cutting expression he could, "you are the conservatives of music. Don't prevent us rehearsing. It's you who are preventing us. The less you rehearse on those chamber pots of yours, the nicer it sounds. Whether you rehearse on those samovars of yours or not makes no damn difference." Unable to reach any agreement, both sides remained where they were and obstinately began playing their own music. Down the river floated sounds that could only have been made by a tram passing slowly over broken glass. The brass played the Kexholm Lifeguards March while the sound effects rendered a dance. An antelope at the source of the Zambesi. The shindy was ended by the personal intervention of the chairman of the lottery committee. At 11 o'clock, the magnum opus was completed. Walking backwards, Ostap and Vorobey and Ninov dragged their transparent up to the bridge. The fat little man in charge ran in front with his hands in the air. By joint effort, the transparent was tied to the rail. It towered above the passenger deck like a cinema screen. In half an hour, the electrician had laid cables to the back of the transparent and fitted up 3 lights inside it. All that remained was to turn the switch. Off the starboard bow, the lights of Vasyuki could already be made out through the darkness. The chief summoned everyone to the ceremonial illumination of the transparent. Ippolit Matveyevich and the smooth operator watched the proceedings from above, standing beside the dark screen. Every event on board was taken seriously by the floating government department. Typists, messengers, executives, the Columbus Theater, and members of the ship's company crowded into the passenger deck, staring upwards. "Switch it on," ordered the fat man. The transparent lit up. Ostap looked down at the crowd. Their faces were bathed in pink light. The onlookers began laughing. Then there was silence, and a stern voice from below said, "Where's the second in command?" The voice was so peremptory that the second in command rushed down without counting the steps. "Just have a look," said the voice, "and admire your work."
"We're about to be booted off,"
whispered Ostap to Ippolit Matveyevich. And indeed the little fat man came flying up to the top deck like a hawk.
"Well, how's the transparent?"
asked Ostap cheekily.
"Is it long enough?"
"Collect your things," shouted the fat man.
"What's the hurry?"
"Collect your things. You're going to court. Our boss doesn't like to joke." "Throw him out," came the peremptory voice from below.
"But seriously, don't you like our transparent? Isn't it really any good?"
There was no point in continuing the game. The Scriabin had already heaved to, and the faces of the bewildered Vasyuki citizens crowding the pier could be seen from the ship. Payment was categorically refused. They were given 5 minutes to collect their things. "Incompetent fool," said Sindievich as the partners walked down onto the pier. "They should have given the transparent for me to do. I would have done it so that no Meyerhold would have had a look in." On the quay side, the concessionaire stopped and looked up. The transparent shone bright against the dark sky.
Yes," said Ostap. "The transparent is rather outlandish, a lousy job."
Compared with Ostap's work, any picture drawn with the tail of an unruly donkey would have been a masterpiece. Instead of a sewer sewing bonds, Ostap's mischievous hand had drawn a stumpy body with a sugar-loaf head and thin whip-like arms. Behind the concessionaires, the ship blazed with light and resounded with music, while in front of them on the high bank was the darkness of provincial midnight, the barking of a dog, and a distant accordion.
"I will sum up the situation," said Ostap lightheartedly. "Debit, not a cent of money. 3 chairs sailing down the river, nowhere to go, and no SPCC badge. Credit, a 1926 edition of a guidebook to the Volga. I was forced to borrow it from Major Simbievich's cabin. To balance that without a deficit would be very difficult. We'll have to spend the night on the quay."
The concessionaires arranged themselves on the riverside benches. By the light of a battered kerosene lamp, Ostap read the guidebook. On the right-hand bank is the town of Vasyuki. The commodities dispatched from there are timber, resin, bark, and bast. Consumer goods are delivered here for the region, which is 50 miles from the nearest railway. The town has a population of 8,000. It has a state-owned cardboard factory employing 520 workers, a small foundry, a brewery, and a tannery. Besides normal academic establishments, there is also a forestry school.
"The situation is more serious than I thought," observed Ostap. "It seems out of the question that we'll be able to squeeze any money out of the citizens of Vasyuki. We nevertheless need 30 rubles. First, we have to eat, and second, we have to catch up the lottery ship and meet the Columbus Theater in Stalingrad."
Ippolit Matveyevich curled up like an old emaciated tomcat after a skirmish with a younger rival, an ebullient conqueror of roofs, penthouses, and dormer windows. Ostap walked up and down the benches, thinking and scheming. By 1 o'clock, a magnificent plan was ready. Bender lay down by the side of his partner and went to sleep.